Hi, this is Martha, and Martha has brought one of her loved ones to see us, and through functional neurology, we've been able to make some positive changes and helping him, and she's just going to tell you her story.
Well, I have 6 children, and several of them, and probably including my husband and some of our relatives, are dyslexic, dysgraphic, ADD, and this son actually is all 3. And so I guess you're that way from birth or thereabouts. I think that's true in his case. He was diagnosed around 4.5 by an educational psychologist with those 3 ways of being. And I don't like to call them disabilities or anything like that, because I think that it's just the brain working in a different way. So anyways, it just so happens we homeschool. That's not why we started homeschooling, but we do homeschool. So I was able to change curriculums, alter assignments, read assignments to him, have him dictate to me, and he's now 13, so he sees the difference of other students his age and his own ability to perform academically. So, and hated math, really almost had like a physical reaction when he had to do math. So we tried those types of things. I did try some programs. I once worked as a reading specialist for a reading clinic, so I went through that program, and in those days there was no computer, so it's all about rules and looking at the English language in kind of a different way than they do in the traditional classroom. And that worked to some degree, and I think most of those programs worked to some degree. So time was going on, and our older son has similar things going on, and so we took him to a program that they work on every part of your brain. So at the end of the program, yes, things did improve, but the things that were already high were even higher, and the things that were sort of low were a little bit higher. So there was still a discrepancy, and there still is a discrepancy in his academic performance and things like that. So one day in the mail, I got a postcard that said that Dr. Rogers did functional neurology, had a functional neurology program here, and could come in for a screening at a reduced price. So I decided to try it. So we came in, and first I talked to him for about 10 or 15 minutes, and he gave me some books to read. Which, is it okay if I say the names of the books?
Absolutely.
Okay. I think it was The Disconnected Kid and The Reconnected Kid. So I read those books, and I was like, oh yeah, this is spot on. This is what's going on. This is what's going on with my kids. This is what's going on with some of my relatives. I recognize this. And in the book, it has a lot of checklists and questionnaires, which I didn't actually fill out, but I just sort of went through them. And so we scheduled my son to come in, and actually Dr. Rogers evaluated him twice for maybe about 30 minutes each, and I think that was really an integral and important part of the program, because he could find out which part of the brains were firing slower and which parts were firing quicker, and where the lapse in communication was between those parts of the brain. He tested things like that I didn't expect, like for instance some of the reflexes that babies have. He tested my son, and he still actually had some of those reflexes, which should have been gone 12.5 years ago. And I do know that because of all the kids that I have. But I didn't realize that he still had those reflexes. And of course, as many people know, if a part of the brain doesn't progress and those reflexes disappear, and other reflexes can come in, and then academic things come in on top of those. So it has to be a progression. So anyways, we went ahead and started the program. And so immediately things started changing that were not academic, but were parts of his personality, like some sort of compulsive behaviors that he had. He started being more confident to sing, because his singing voice wasn't that great. And you could see a sort of relaxing of his whole person. I would say that was the first thing. I'm really talking a long time here, sorry.
That's okay. Right?
Okay, so then things went on from there, and like my son explained things like we went to go view a classroom that he was thinking of taking a class at, and it was kids sitting at tables, probably about 35, reading a book, and then they would take turns reading, and then the teacher would ask questions. And so we watched this class for about an hour. And he said, okay, my head felt like it was going to explode, having to sit there for that long. Also, when he would read, it would be for short periods of time, once in a while, a little bit longer. I would say 20, 30 minutes was really pushing it, and then his brain needed a complete refresh and was exhausted, because As you may or may not know, dyslexic people's brains work 200 to 2,000 times faster than the normal brain because they have to sort out which of all the things they're seeing is the correct one. So, and also the act of writing was difficult, and expressing his thoughts were difficult, sometimes orally and definitely in writing. So time went on, and everything just, more and more things started clicking, and we did about a 6 or 7 week session, period of sessions, twice a week. And during that time, things started just flowing more in school. He was able to express his ideas better, read for longer and longer periods of time. In fact, recently he just read for 2.5 hours straight. That's like the first time in his life. The Hobbit too, not just like a real easy book, a book that really has some meat to it. And then also the act of writing. His writing is even his teacher, because we're in a public charter school, so there's a teacher overseeing us. His teacher noticed that his writing is more uniform in size and shape, whereas before it was big and he just hated it, so he would just do anything. And then he was already typing a lot of his assignments, and so he still is doing that, but more and more confidence. Wrote a couple of stories. Just like I didn't even assign it in school. He just did it on his own, things like that, which he really hadn't done before. Except maybe when he was really small, he drew a picture and told me a story or something like that. And then also he had to do something for Boy Scouts, and he had to fill out a lot of information on some pre-work that he did for a merit badge, and these are the more complicated merit badges for Eagle Scout, and he hand wrote it all. And we talked about things, and then he would write it, but he hand wrote it legibly and filled out the whole for 2 different badges. So that was really a huge difference and a huge breakthrough from what was done before he started the program. Not just in the past, but 6 weeks before that. And so then, an important thing then I think that happened is Dr. Rogers reevaluated him, and he saw a lot of things had changed, and so now we're just beginning, maybe we've done about 3 sessions in the revamped program. And something else I noticed is my son, it's easier for him to fall asleep at night. He doesn't constantly get up with nervousness and anxiety, and he is better able to express himself. And he used to use a lot of pronouns, it, he, she, and now he's more specific, and he's able to say his needs. And to me, it just seems like he's more even in control of his life. He's able to express his desires and to formulate plans and goals of how to reach some of the things that he wants to do. As far as what they actually do in the sessions, I don't really watch them. But I know that they do physical things that go along with mental things at the same time. For instance, I know one thing he's had to do, because he told me he lays on his back on a skateboard and has to pull himself along a rope and say the ABCs backwards, things like that. I know that also I've always taken my kids to the chiropractor since they're born, because that's the first time that your spine gets twisted, and especially in his case, because he kind of had a strange birth. But anyways, so he told me he gets adjustments, but they're different than a normal chiropractor adjustment. He said sometimes just one side, or just different things like that. And so that, I'm assuming, is all to get those parts of the brain that are firing slower to speed up. And in the reevaluation, we got a sheet, and it showed how things had gone up and some things had actually gone down, where it showed like it used to be, say, the left cortex was high and the right was low, and now they were like this. And my son was like, oh, well, I mean, that means that I went down. And I said, no, what that means is this guy was trying to do all the work, and this guy was like just trying to tread water, and now this guy gets to do only what he's supposed to do, and this guy's helping this side of the brain. Not really people, but okay, this side of the brain. So anyways, I'm anxious to see in math what happens, but we're in summer right now, and he's not really willing to spend any of his summer doing math, because it just like makes him very nervous. And so we'll see during the school year, once it starts up, what kind of changes have come about there, which I'm sure there will be some. And I think that's it. Do you have any questions for me?
Do you have any recommendations for another parent who's in a similar situation?
And I have recommended this program to some parents, and I know that maybe people might be thinking, that's impossible, that can't work, that's just way oversimplified, and how can you get the brain to do that? But in having tried different programs at home and with therapists, and as I mentioned, the program with my other son, they only work to a certain degree, and there's always been something missing. And what I'm thinking is that this program, there isn't something missing, because for the whole brain to work in conjunction is great. And your kid isn't going to lose anything. That was a little fear in mine, because my son's really creative in certain areas, and I thought, well, what if he stops being creative in those areas? But the truth is, he's able to now take that creativity and take it even further in a more organized fashion. And he puts the parts together in what he's trying to do, and so actually it's been an asset in that area too.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay, welcome.